So is that what this is? Some sort of Suicide Squad review? Why, yes it is. What's up guys? Last week I went and saw Suicide Squad when it first came out, and while this review may be a bit late, and while most people have probably made up their minds about how this movie is, I still thought I'd go ahead and share my thoughts and then make a short video about it. So I went in, I had high hopes for this film, and I wanted a film that was going to help establish DC. DC's been struggling with Batman vs. Superman, and I didn't want them to struggle with this. I wanted this to be a win for DC, because I do believe in them, and I do believe that Jeff Johns, once he is fully in, his movies will start being very good. And we can officially cut Zack Snyder out. I was a little nervous though. I was seeing the Rotten Tomatoes scores, I was seeing all of these bad reviews, even on comic book websites, and I went in, and I gotta say that coming out, I thought this was actually a really good movie. So essentially what Suicide Squad is a team-based comic that's been around for a couple of decades. Director of Argus, Amanda Waller, aka the Waller, who in her own right is kind of a villain, but less like rogues gallery crazy villains and that dresses up, and more of government evil who will do anything by any means necessary for the good of the country, which is kind of scary. She has this task force, aka Suicide Squad, that she controls with the government, is a group of supervillains, and sends them on dangerous Black Ops missions that are maybe a little too much for regular soldiers, and things that they don't want to get the Justice League involved, since they don't control the Justice League, and anything the government can't control, they're a little afraid of. To force them to do this, she implants bombs into their necks, so that they won't try and run off. And so if they do run off, which almost every time they have a first comic or a first animated movie, or even spoilers with the live action film, someone's always got to get their head blown off to show that, hey, we mean business. And their reward for not so much volunteering for this program, they do get time shaved off of their prison sentence, which I guess doesn't really matter much whenever you have like a 3 lifetime sentence for killing a bunch of people, which most of these people have. I want to say that sometimes it takes like 5 years for them to get out. And usually they're simple missions, they do this, they go back and forth. And that's mostly what it is. I've read a couple of the New 52 comics about it. It's mostly had this, it's had some of the same characters that are in this movie, Deadshot, Harley Quinn. And for this movie, it keeps all of those elements the same. There is Amanda Waller, though I don't think she's a director in there. Argus, I don't think it's been mentioned. I could be wrong. She decides, after seeing the events of Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel, she sees Superman, she decides that she needs to create her own task force so that if the next superpowered individual were to come about and they happen to be evil, she could easily take them down. She creates this task force, and she ends up using it whenever that whole, not saying spoilers of who the villain is, but you see the wreckage in the trailer with the big light in the sky. She sends the task force out to go and find somebody and bring them back. It is a very simple plot. That is what I'm seeing as the complaints for this film, that it is a simple plot. And you know, I think that's okay for this film. Not every movie needs this complex plot. It is a very point A to point B film. Or more point A, point B, point A, and maybe a couple points in between. Now looking at this film, it is not your conventional superhero film. And that is not a bunch of heroes that want to go off and do something. It is heroes that, not even heroes, it is characters that have to go do something. It is a war film, basically, and it's not surprising coming from director David Ayer, who is probably most well known for right now, and recently for his film Fury. I mean, if you take Saving Private Ryan and add it to Escape from New York, and disguise all of the characters with DC characters, you basically have Suicide Squad. You know, now that I think about it, I want to say in Escape from New York, Stank Plissken was going to go to the prison, but then he had to go in and save the president, and he had a bomb planted in him. The cinematography of this film was very different from Batman vs. Superman. While Batman vs. Superman was very dark, this was both dark and colorful at the same time. Moving to the characters, it's less of a plot-driven movie and more of a character-driven movie, where you're more interested in the characters and their backstories and how they got there. This plot is the layout for these characters to shine and be interesting. And I want to say most of these characters shine very well. Amanda Waller, I thought Viola Davis did a very good job. And I knew she was going to be a very good Amanda Waller from the start of her casting. Will Smith did a pretty fantastic job, mostly leading this film with Deadshot. Deadshot was probably the main character of this film. Of course, this movie, with these villains as the leads, they're going to show some kind of sympathy to them. And they do that with Deadshot. You do feel for him with his daughter and the way he's captured and put into prison. And by the end, you see him as this loving father, and you forget that in the comics, he is kind of an ass. But I think Will Smith did a very good job in this. He was both very serious and very comedic. It went over very well. It didn't come off as odd or anything. His points in there where he says jokes are none of them fall flat. Harley Quinn was very good. Margot Robbie did a fantastic job. And then that kind of leads me to the Joker, who I want to talk most about. I walked in, I didn't know much about Jared Leto's Joker. I wanted to hold my hopes up high, and I gotta say that I wasn't very impressed with him. He seemed less like the Joker, and he didn't seem very crazy or psychotic. He seemed like a mob boss that was trying to have a theme for him. Kind of like Fallout, with the games in Fallout with all the different factions, where they have this leader, like the Khans in Fallout New Vegas, or Elvis Presley gang, the Kings, where they had this persona that they displayed, and they had their whole army. That's what he felt like to me. He felt like this guy decided that he wanted to be the Joker and be known as the Joker, so he just put on some makeup and tried to act crazy. And that, I can maybe get behind it if it turns out 20 years earlier, when Batman was in his prime and Joker was in his prime, he was the crazy psycho. He was kind of like Jack Nicholson, and over time, as Batman became grizzled, maybe he got less psychotic and more grizzled, to the point where he established himself from the clown prince of crime to maybe the clown don of crime, or the clown king. I will give him another chance if he's in the Batman solo film. I know that there was more of him supposed to be in that film that they cut out. Who knows? That could have saved him for me, but as of right now, I'm not impressed. But I want to say the one character that really surprised me in this film was El Diablo. I didn't know much about El Diablo going in. His whole arc was very interesting. It reminds me a little of Old Man Logan, where he refuses to use his powers, and for the longest time, and you see why eventually, and his whole character and what he does and how this movie ends with him. It's very nice, and it was very well written, I think, and you learned a lot about him in the bar scene, which was a very good scene. They cut out the part of it I really liked in the trailer with them all getting their drinks, but it was a very good scene. You learn a lot about the different characters and where they come together, and you learn a lot about El Diablo, and by the end, I want to say El Diablo was one of my favorites. Speaking of characters that surprised me, I wasn't sure how to take Captain Boomerang originally from the trailers. It was different from the one I'd read in comics, different from ones I've seen on TV, but Jai Courtney was surprisingly very good. He was very fun. He made me laugh a lot, and I really did enjoy it. His whole persona was very interesting. I really do look forward to the Flash solo film, because I'd like to see him be the main villain who gets the whole rogues together to take on the Flash. That'd be really interesting. Overall, I do want to say that I enjoyed this film. I'd give it, I don't know how I rate my own films right now. I guess I'm going to go with a 5-star rating system. I'd give this movie 3.5, 4 out of stars, It wasn't fantastic, it wasn't great, but I really did like it. It's a movie where I don't really expect a sequel, but I do expect to see these characters branch off into films. So tell me what you think, guys. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Tell me what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.